Welcome to my review of Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. Now this is a little gem of a game, and I really felt compelled to do this review even though the game came out in 2017 and it's now, at the time of doing this review, 2019. I just felt like I wanted to spread the word. Play this game. Even if you're not a big gamer, even if you don't think that this type of game is really going to appeal to you, play this game. It really is a fantastic experience. Not necessarily a fun experience. This game deals with adult themes and it doesn't shy away from them. It's quite an edgy game. So if you're looking for something a bit different, this is definitely it. Now first off, I want to start with what this game is not. It is not an open world exploration game. So if you're looking at these fantastic environments, thinking, wow, I want to explore this big Viking world, that is not going to happen. This is a very linear, story-driven experience. This game uses a very up-close and personal third-person perspective. You are literally looking over the shoulder of the main character Senua at all times. And this is key to the experience. Now this game is quite macabre. Senua is a Celtic warrior whose partner has been slain by some Viking invaders. And you go with Senua on this journey into the depth of the underworld to reclaim his soul. And the vessel she uses to do that is his severed head. That's right. She carries around his severed head on her waist. But that's not the half of it. You soon realise that this woman has got some serious issues. She's actually suffering from a mental health condition called psychosis. Now some reviewers have called this a disease. Mental health is not a disease, it is a condition. You can't catch it. But in all seriousness, it is kind of understandable because a lot of people do not have experience of mental health issues. And that's not because it isn't prevalent. A lot of people suffer from mental health issues within their lifetime. It's just something that's still quite a taboo subject. People don't tend to talk about it. And that's why I think this game should be applauded for tackling this subject matter. And it has won a lot of awards for doing so. And I can also see why Ninja Theory, who made this game, had to self-publish it. Because most publishers are quite risk adverse and they tend to shy away from any sort of controversy. Self-publishing a game is no easy feat. You have to finance it yourself. They did get some financial help from a mental health organisation, but basically they had to fund it themselves. This is a passion project for Ninja Theory. You can tell that. There's so much thought gone into this game, into how it's been constructed and put together. The ideas they have really gestated, and they've developed them. They've come up with this really clear vision of what they wanted to achieve. And in all the important areas, they absolutely nailed it. It's not perfect, and I will be addressing a few issues I had with the game, but they're not big issues. I am kind of nitpicking here, but I felt obviously I wanted to do a well-balanced review. I want to give you the good and the bad. What I really love about this game is the performance that the actress who plays Senua gives. It is absolutely amazing. It's so engaging, and they do full motion capture for her body and also her facial expressions. And what's even more amazing is she's not even a professional actress. She was actually a video editor, freelance photographer who was working on the project. And she was just a stand-in initially, but when they realised how good her performance was, they actually used her for the main game. And you might be cynical and you might think, just saving costs, right? But having played the game, I can't imagine anyone giving a better performance. And she actually wins awards for her performance in the game, and quite deservedly so. Now the cutscenes are seamless, they are in-engine, and they are intelligently done. I always instinctively knew when I didn't have control of the character. I never felt as though the controls were being wrestled away from me needlessly. And they only had one camera to record the motion capture, so they don't cut from camera to camera within the scenes. So it feels really intimate. It really feels like you're standing there next to Senua as the actress is giving her performance. And when she's staring you directly in the eyes and you see all the emotion on her face, it can be quite intimidating. Some of the looks she gives, whoa, like, do not mess with this woman. She is going through some serious stuff. This game is all about emotion, trying to make you experience the world in the same way someone suffering from psychosis would experience the world. And it affects all the design choices that have been made within this game. Even with regard to the combat, with regard to the puzzling elements, even navigating the environments, there's all this visual stimulus that's thrown at you, and it can be hard to interpret it, what's real, what isn't real. There's even voices that talk in your head all the time, or pretty much all the time, and some of them doubt you, some of them even mock you, some of them actually give you cues, actually help you. Like if you're facing more than one foe, they might tell you, oh, you're being attacked. And a lot of the sounds, including the voices, have been recorded in binaural audio. And this gives fantastic spatial awareness of where the sounds are. We actually hear in 3D. And even the best surround sound can't give you the proper 3D experience that binaural audio can give you. Now you can play this game through a normal TV and have a good experience, but to really feel that immersion and to get the benefit of the binaural audio, you definitely need to play this game with headphones. Now the way binaural audio works is they actually use a rubber ear shape, and they put a microphone where your eardrum would be, and the rubber ear shapes the pressure waves, the sound waves, the same way your ear shapes them. That's why your ear is such a weird shape. But that positional information is stored within the sound. And so when you play back that recording via headphones, your brain can actually interpret that positional information and perfectly position that sound in three-dimensional space. Now, normal surround sound just works on a two-dimensional plane, really, just sounds left, right, front and behind you. It doesn't give you that three-dimensional experience of sounds above and below you. When they were making this game, they actually got people who had suffered from psychosis to play it, and they also consulted with neuroscientists to really make sure they gave an accurate representation of what it's like to live with this condition. And it really goes to show that games can go far beyond just simple entertainment. Now, people that suffer from psychosis, their brains get quite scrambled and they can struggle to keep a grip on reality, and any sort of stimulus can be overwhelming. They make all sorts of associations that aren't real. Like, they don't seem rational to us, but they're perfectly rational to them. They associate shapes and colours in the environment with emotions and memories, and it becomes really confusing to interpret all this, and they can actually retreat into themselves, that they don't want to go outside, don't want to go anywhere and do anything. Now, the environmental puzzles in this game kind of explore that in a very simplistic way. There are symbols on some doors that block your path, and you have to just walk around the environment and look for those symbols. Finding the symbols involves standing in the correct place so you can line up bits of geometry to create the symbol. Unfortunately, when you are in an area where you're able to do that, you actually get red glowing symbols sort of floating around, so you can actually tell when you're in the right place. That makes things progress a lot quicker than they otherwise would do. Also, the idea of perception is explored quite simplistically. There are bits of geometry in the environment that are broken and translucent. Might be a bridge or some steps, and it just involves standing in the correct position and using your focus ability to reconstruct those pieces of geometry so you can then progress within the environment. They also explore the idea of perception using portals in more open areas, and when you look through these portals, it shows you a different version of reality where some geometry exists, some geometry doesn't exist in the different portals, and you can actually walk through these portals, and they use this idea to construct more puzzles. And they actually work quite good, quite devious sometimes in how they put these puzzles together. Okay, so now I want to talk about the combat. Yes, this is not a walking simulator, there is combat. There aren't enemies just sort of placed around the environments. They only really manifest themselves in certain locations. And when I say manifest, I do mean that. They just appear really around you. In most games I don't like that, but because of the psychosis it fits. Like, people do just imagine beings appearing in front of them. A lot of reviewers have said that the combat was their least favourite part of the game, that it was a bit shallow and repetitive. But I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite impactful. There was weight to the enemies, there's a weight to your movements. You have like a heavy and a light attack. You also have a parry, and if you time the parry correctly and deflect an attack, you get this flash of blue, and then you can do a focus attack, which basically means like a bullet time mechanic. Time slows down and your attacks become undefensible. Enemies still attack you in slow motion, you still have to defend their blows, but obviously in slow motion that's not easy to do. And you can actually deflect their blows and build up your focus. And the voices in your head will actually inform you of this. They will say, oh, use your focus, your focus is building up. And you can string together lots of attacks, and if you use that counter parry ability effectively, you can actually destroy enemies pretty quickly. And there's a berserker guy with a shield, and you can actually kick him, and then you can get attacks in on him. And some of the enemies go kind of all like ghostly, and then you have to use your focus ability to make them more real, like manifest themselves so you can get attacks in. And the bosses really impressive. I love the bosses, really imaginative designs to them, and they had really unique attacks. For me, the bosses were a real highlight of the game. I really can't praise the environmental artists in this game enough. They've done an absolutely amazing job. I think they've actually taken a leaf out of From Software's book when it comes to world building. They've done their research. The architecture looks authentic for the time period. These big imposing structures made of solid wood and oak timbers, sheer rock faces, huge big slabs of stone. It all looks really imposing. The sense of scale is fantastic. Senua seems like this small, insignificant being in this big landscape. The art direction, the concept work is definitely top notch. Now, although only a small team of people made this game, only 20 people, the amount of work they've put into it is staggering. You might expect a small team to recycle a lot of assets. That doesn't really happen. Each location feels unique. You can't wait to open the next door and get to the next area and see what they've come up with. I loved walking along the shore with these huge, big Viking longboats that have been wrecked, and you can actually see the way they're constructed. When Senua is falling around and staggering through these environments, going from one stressful situation to the next, you can't help but marvel at the views on offer here. And the lighting is superb. Like, this game is AAA when it comes to the lighting. It looks stunning. What I love about this game is how cohesive it all feels, and that all comes down to great design. If you see a structure in the distance, you're going to be going there. You'll get there and you'll get to see what it's like within that structure. And because this game is all about emotion, there's no HUD, there's no head-up display that really sort of breaks that. Like so many games, they have these head-up displays, energy bars, life bars, and it kind of screams that you are playing a game. With Hellblade, they do away with all that. When you're actually in combat, if you take damage, there's no health bar. You will just see Senua, she will be staggering around, and the voices will say she's close to death. They will tell you. And I just feel that's a great design choice for this game. Now, if you are fortunate enough to have a PlayStation Pro, you can play the game at 60 frames a second rather than 30. It still plays fine at 30, but obviously it feels a lot smoother, a lot slicker at 60, and of course the combat really benefits as well from 60 frames a second. Now, this game originally came out as a digital release, but now you can also get it as a physical release. I actually bought a brand new physical copy online, and that's from the PS4, but you can also buy it for Xbox as well. Then you can buy it on Steam as well, this game, for the PC, and there is actually a Nintendo Switch version that's coming out soon. Now, unfortunately, Ninja Theory has been purchased by Microsoft, so as PS4 players, we may not get to experience Ninja Theory's next project, and that's a great shame, but that's just the way the industry is these days. I feel the industry really does need more innovative games like this. It's high quality. It's not the biggest game, comes in about 7 hours of gameplay, but it's so worth it. It's such a fantastic experience. It definitely is quality over quantity. This game is really respectful of your time, and it does not outstay its welcome. Now, although it's a very beautiful looking game, I did say there was a few things I wasn't happy about. And one of those things was the texture resolution. it just didn't look that high to me. I was playing it on a 1080p monitor, but at some points in the game it looked more like a 720p game. They'd been upscaled to 1080. Now I'm not sure why that was. There is a really heavy noise filter that they've applied in the pipeline. I really didn't appreciate that. I don't like film grain noise effects in games. I know that producers, they love to apply that sort of cinematic effect, but I really would have appreciated being able to turn that off for a cleaner image. And although they do give a good illusion of it being a dynamic world, there are sort of flags floating in the wind, and you go into different sections and it might be raining, and they have more sort of specular maps to make things look wet. But I never really felt that I was well connected with the world. When you look for footprints in the sand when you're walking around, you don't see any. And also the shrubbery and the greenery didn't move, it didn't interact with Senua as you move through the environment. You do push doors and climb ladders, and you even walk across balance beams. But I would have appreciated more physics in the game. Actual objects you can interact with. Even when you're fighting with enemies, it would have been nice if bits of scenery were there that were smashed or destroyed. I just didn't feel as well connected with the world as I'd like to have felt. Ninja Theory did actually say that this is like AAA quality, but in terms of interacting with the environment and feeling connected to the environment, I felt they could have done more. Now, you may have heard about the permadeath mechanic in this game. When you die, these black veins of rot creep up Senua's arm, and if they get to her head, the game actually tells you that all your progress will be lost and you will have to start again. Now just trust me on this one, it's all part of the experience and it does not detract from it. Do not let that stop you playing the game. Now I do like the puzzles in this game on the whole, and I enjoyed them, but there was a couple of times I did get frustrated. One time there was a maze and it all kind of looked the same, and I had to find some symbols within the maze while I was being followed around by some fiery death, and I died over and over again. It seemed trial and error to me. I do not like trial and error puzzles, they're just annoying. Maybe there was a way of determining the correct way to go, but if there was one, I missed it. I didn't appreciate that at all. That was a relief to get that done. Now the developers did say it's AAA, so I'm going to be a bit more picky. I'm going to talk about the physics in the game, or lack thereof. Senua's clothing never really moved convincingly to me. It all looked very static. It looked as though she was rigged and maybe procedural animation had been applied to her hair as well as her clothing. But for a AAA title, you would expect better physics. Now I know to say use the Havoc physics engine, for instance, which is very popular. That's going to cost money. And for a small team on a low budget, maybe that just wasn't feasible. But if they're going to call it AAA, yeah, physics could have been better. Now there are symbols that are dotted around the world, and you can activate them using your focus. And they give you little snippets of Norse mythology. And I really enjoyed those. They're little voice recordings, but they gave more context to the world. Now one thing they did, obviously to cut costs, was to use some actual live action footage, some real video of real actors acting. They try and cover it up, they try and make it fit more in with the computer graphics, we're using filters and making it kind of low res, but for me I found it really jarring and it definitely broke the immersion. I can understand why they did it, but for me it just didn't work.
There is a combat difficulty setting that you can adjust. I had it on auto, which is the default, and it was actually quite challenging when there was multiple enemies on screen. And that leads me to my one negative point about the combat. It has an auto lock-on feature, so the enemy that is nearest to you is the one you lock onto. But not being able to control that, I've found quite problematic when there was multiple enemies on screen and you was trying to juggle them and you wanted to maintain distance. There is a dodge mechanic, and I found myself repeatedly using it just to try and get myself out of tricky situations, where if there was a lock-on mechanic I could just disengage it and run away. So you do have to rely quite heavily on the counter and the dodge mechanic in the game. One of the things I really liked about the combat is the ability to store focus. I thought that's a really nice touch. Senua can actually store up to 3 bursts of focus in her little bronze mirror that she wears on her waist. You can see the little bright swirls as the focus builds up, and then you can use it when you really need it and unleash hell upon the beasts of the darkness. I know, a bit overly dramatic, but that's Hellblade.
Now, I don't actually have VR, but apparently now you can actually play Hellblade in virtual reality if you've got a VR headset. I would love to try that because the acting in this game, as I said, is so good that would be a fantastic experience.
With no memory.
Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this review and it's been informative for you and it's encouraged you to give this game a go. You know, I did have a couple of little minor complaints, but really nothing that should stop you trying this game. It really is a unique experience, definitely something you shouldn't miss out on. Okay, so thank you very much. I would appreciate a thumbs up as always, that would really help me out, and I'll catch you in the next video. And goodbye.